Okay, always difficult to demonstrate in class. I've got a demonstration here for you using the 3D capabilities in Photoshop. And I'm just going to show you sort of the basic stuff and then ask if you would please to try to come up with some good stuff on your own. I'm going to open, first of all, do an image 3D using some of the photos that we use in class. So let me just go over to our class photos, and I think one of them that we used was this hill skies picture. All you have to do is have an image open, and then as you select from the 3D menu at top here, try the mesh from layer. Now, the postcard is not terribly interesting. It basically is just a distortion of the image. The mesh has some strange options where you can turn really any picture into a shape. And so I'll just pick from the top of the list here and convert this into a cone. Now you can see I'm already in my 3D interface. There is the Oldham workspace that we've been using all along, but as you switch to 3D, it'll ask you if you want to do 3D, and I just clicked yes. And the tools for this are located up here, and I can't at all say that I'm an expert with this, but if I use the first rotation tool here, it usually gives me some of the best results. You can turn this image in just about every angle from underneath to above. You can see where the image seams together, where it was a flat image and the seam comes together right there. Okay, you can see underneath it. And basically this is what this function does. Now there's some other controls there. There's a different kind of rotation that'll pretty much change the orientation of the horizon. And then there's a kind of a move function that'll let you move it up and down this way. And you can use that to adjust your perspective lines. And then there's another kind of a scale or slide the object, which again it kind of does a similar kind of a thing. If you prompt over these, it'll tell you basically what it's going to do. And then there's a scale option there where you can make it smaller and larger. Notice that the movement of the mouse can sometimes feel a little bit odd for the way that it's making it move. Okay, so you should kind of expect that. With this object, if you click on that first tool and click right on the object, I'll zoom in here. You should see a little widget here that is supposed to give you some other additional movements on this, and this one is indicating rotating on the y-axis. Then if you roll over here, you can see kind of how that's rotating on the x-axis, and see how that wheel works. Okay, and then again with that widget selected, we did that by just clicking straight on the object. You should see some indication of rotating this way. I think the smartboard in the classroom really works against this particular function in Photoshop, and hopefully you guys had a little better luck with it than I did. But you can see you can move it up above the perspective grid. The little tips are move. The next thing is a rotate, and then the next thing is a scale, and it'll scale it in this one dimension this way. And you should get the same kind of report over here. This moves it along this way. The next one down will rotate it. And then the next little box, if you can see it there, is a scale. And you can scale it along that X. And they're all the same. I'll just zoom in again a little closer. Same here. There's the move, there's the rotate, and there's the scale. The box in the middle is supposed to scale uniformly. And Again, I wasn't having much luck with this in the classroom, but you can see that it's working pretty well here. These facets light up too. If you look, there's the front of the box, and then here's the side. And depending on how you've got it, kind of selected, it'll show you different functions for ways to make it work. This up here is just an alternate view. You can see I've got a top view, and we can switch views so that the view on the screen is the view now in the little box. It's up to you to kind of figure out how that is really going to help you. There's a left view and a right view, and not seeing a whole lot of difference. There's a top view and a bottom view, just all in shadow. Okay, default view. Okay, so that's some of the basic workings of that. The layers, or the 3D panel that you see over here, has some other additional options for you to consider. You can change the surface textures and what's going on the bottom. You can edit your light. This bottom one will edit the lighting on the object, and you can make it so that it is lit in a different way by just pulling this little handle. Okay, it's kind of points towards this object out here. Pretty much move it any way you like until you get a nice look. Okay, to see it without all this construction, just switch back to your layers panel and deselect that layer, and you can now see how that image looks. It's the only image here. Now, I did ask if you would please to add additional layers just so you have some kind of environment around this object. You could add color using your little widget or little icon at the bottom of your layers panel. You can add, for instance, a solid color, and then just move that color so it's below the image. You see a nice shadow that falls there. You can also open other images. If I open a different image here, I'll open something like this lichen picture. And I'll just select it all, select all, Command A, copy, Command C, and then go back to my my other file, and you can just paste that in, and it becomes part of the file as well. And you can see it there in the Layers panel. Okay, these all have the same functionalities as other layers that we've worked with all semester. You can change the opacity and make it sort of see-through. You can even do that to the top layer and make it sort of see-through too. Okay. Again, to get rid of the construction, though, click on a different layer and you can see the image without the construction. There's also, if you click back on that layer, there's also a properties panel that allows you quite a few options in here. You can change color, give it a red cast. I want to do that. You can change the intensity. You can work with the shadow. And we also talked about this. If you want to, if you notice, the image looks a little grainy. It looks a little grainy. It's because it hasn't been rendered yet. And when I click back on the layer, the render button is right here. But be careful; it takes a long time to render an image. And there is a shortcut. If you use an ellipse and just render a small part of it. And I'm not going to do this for this demonstration, but you can render, and it'll render just that edge, and you can see if the things you've changed are the things that you want. Okay. I'm not going to do that now, simply because it takes a long time, and it's a little tricky in class even to use that because you end up spending all your time waiting for it to render. Okay. And working on other things at the same time that it's rendering can be a little problematic too. It can cause occasionally the computer might crash or fail, or the software might turn itself off or something like that. So you just really have to just let it render. Okay, so there's all that there with shapes. Now you can do multiple shapes, absolutely. you could take, for instance, that lichen layer, and you could do the same thing to it, and change it to a different shape. And so why don't I just do that real quick here. We'll try turning the lichen picture into a cylinder, and you can see that it's turned into a cylinder. Some of these are, I don't know, a little silly, but it's just failure on my part. I haven't really figured out a good way to use them. I'm going to turn off that top layer. Again, if you click right on it, you get the options for rotating and that sort of thing. If you click outside of the image, you usually get a more kind of a full range of movement using that first tool. And there is ways. I haven't really got the information to share with you on how to do this, but you can put images on the ends. There's ways to do that. I'm just hoping that you guys will come up with something really good to help me maybe get a little better at using this. The click in the middle gives you this control, where you can pull stuff up. You can make things look like it's floating. You can pull things this way. The arrow tips, remember, will make it. We'll move it. The next one, the ring, will cause it to spin, and then the next one right below that will cause it to scale in that one dimension. So you can make a skinny looking cylinder if you want to. Now the box in the middle scales it in every dimension, so you can make it smaller or larger. And likewise all the others, you can move it, rotate it. It's fun to do. I just have a little trouble kind of figuring out how to use it best. Okay, again, you can just click on a different layer and you can see what it looks like without it. You can see the two objects together now. That one doesn't look very 3D. I probably need to turn it a little better. But remember, you can go right straight back into it, and you can, to get out of the light, since I was using light last time, just click away, and now you can move the object again. Getting things to float independent from each other is easy. Getting things to look like they really have a purpose with each other, to me, is the hard part. You can move them so they exist in different spaces. You can adjust the light so they both are casting a shadow. You can see the two shadows now there. I guess if you got the light in a similar way, it might look better. Okay. I've still got my green background. You can turn that off and do other things with it. Put another image in there. You can change the opacity. Maybe bring in a gradient instead. Double click. Try other colors. Remember, you can sample off the colors that are inside the image if you want to do something like that. Okay. All right, so that's Shape 3D, and let's take a look at the next one here.